Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candice Olushola, and today I have a very special guest with me. She is a friend of mine from undergrad. We actually did gospel choir together. She was a soprano. I was an alto tenor. And we pretty much bonded through singing. And we've been friends ever since. So she has just a couple pretty cool stories to tell us today. And I think her journey is going to really inspire a lot of people who may be going through some similar situations that she is. So without further ado, please welcome Khaeris Guerrero. Hey, girl.
Hi, Candy.
Hey, girl.
Thanks
how you doing?
Me.
I'm so glad I get to talk to you today. It's been a minute, so good catch up time. I know we're quarantining per usual.
Girl.
Still home. Still here.
Yes.
Not going anywhere.
Still in pajamas.
Girl. I saw a meme the other day that was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to wear a bra again. Like, I have girls all across the world are like, I haven't worn a bra since March 1st
My
of 2020.
body will not know how to act after this.
Right? I'm like,
It's gonna be like, you want to do what?
Right.
You want to lift what?
Yes. He's like, you want to put on real pants? No. We were so free in the stretchy pants. No.
That's how we'll really know how much weight we have either gained or lost.
You are not even lying.
Because once those jeans go back on, you won't need a scale. You'll need
the jeans don't lie.
Get all the information.
The jeans don't lie.
From that.
That is all you need. Hold on to your jeans, y'all. Them skinny jeans about to tell the truth about the quarantine all across the world. That struggle's gonna be mighty real. You know what's also gonna tell the truth? How people gonna walk out here looking like Chewbacca, running to those hair salons and nail salons and getting their eyebrows waxed. Oh my gosh. It's gonna hot to ghettomess.com. It's gonna be rough.
This is the perfect time to date someone. Because you're gonna see the real deal.
You are not wrong, actually. You're not wrong.
Saying,
like,
pull up on that Zoom chat and let's see how you really look.
Right.
There you go.
It's like, geez, so true. It's like the only thing, if they could create something that I could smell, like, cause you could look rough and still kind of smell good, like, but if you over there now you be stinking, and we've been talking through quarantine, and then we get out of quarantine, and I almost pass out trying to be in your presence. See,
true.
That would be a sad time. But otherwise, I feel like you are so right. Yeah, I'd be like, so when was the last time you took a bath? Don't lie. When did you last take a shower? Like, let's be real.
Do you live with people? people? And if so, do they enjoy being around you right now?
Yes. What date did they say they wish quarantine was over because you were still in their presence? Like, I need to know from the time that quarantine started how long it takes for someone to want you away from them as far as possible. Oh, goodness. Give us strength, Jesus, to get through this quarantine. Lord. Whew.
For real.
It's been like
a month.
About a month now.
More than a month.
More than, definitely, yeah, more than a month. Probably like 6 to 7 weeks at this point. And it's just like, it's too much.
I don't know what life is anymore.
I know.
I feel like I won't know how to act.
I know.
Once this is all over.
I'm wondering how we're going to be with like just interacting with people. Like, are we still gonna be jumpy if someone comes up close to us on accident? Okay, I'm gonna tell you a true story before we start, because I surprised myself the other day. I really hope other listeners relate to what I'm about to say, because it surprised me, and then I thought it was funny, and then I didn't think it was funny, which made it funnier. So I went down the street to Meijer the other week, and now they have it to where they have the greeters that man the cart section. They like make them spray it down and hand it to you one at a time, when before they just had this like pre-wiped section, which I was like, I don't know about that. So now they got the little wiper person, and he's got his little mask and his gloves, and he's spraying, and then he gives you your cart. So I was like, cool. So I get my cart, and they have signs everywhere now that says like, please stay 6 feet apart. And I was like, okay, you go, stepping up the game. That's good. So I'm just shopping, doing my thing, and I get ready to check out, and I get to the checkout line. And I've been doing self-checkout since quarantine, because I don't know how I feel about someone else checking out my stuff right now. So, I will be the next person to go to whatever free kiosk is available. And I'm standing there, and the people behind me aren't paying attention, and they're just coming right up on me. I literally jumped and was like, huh! I took my like karate stance, and then they were like, huh, and I was like, ugh, and we just kind of looked at each other, and they just did the meme where Homer just like backs up into the bush. That's literally exactly what they did. They were just like, so awkward. And then I felt horrible for doing that, but then I was like, is this what we're all gonna be doing though? Like, when everyone is out and we start trying to be normal, like, are we just all gonna be like, whoa, hey, Mortal Kombat, back up? Like, I did not think I would do that, but I've been a little jumpy, because I just don't know, you know? So
yeah, I think when it comes to going out to eat or to grocery shop, I think a lot of us will still be the same.
Yeah.
Wanting distance and everything. However, it'll be really hard for me to go like back to church and not get any hugs.
I know.
Like, I'm gonna want all of the hugs.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm not just gonna walk up on someone and be like, hug me. No. But maybe first Sabbath I'll wear like a free hug t-shirt or something. Like, you approach me if you want.
Right.
If not, that's cool.
Right.
I won't be offended.
Right.
But I'm ready for the hug with people that I care about.
Same. I'm right there with you. I'm like, I just miss hugs. That's all I want right now are hugs. So
I love the hugs.
We're gonna make it, America and Canada and Brazil and every other country on the planet. We're gonna make it. It's gonna be fine. It's just gonna be different on the other side. So and it's hard to mentally prepare for it, because we really don't know what that means. So
Right.
mentally prepare for something different, I guess. Just know that it's going to be different and it's not going to be the normal we had, and that's okay. We will survive. But until then, stay home and wash your hands. Thank you. Okay.
Please. Even if you're home, you should still wash your hands.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you. All right, girl. So, why don't you tell the gente about yourself?
Where do I begin?
Girl.
No.
On the day I was born. Yeah, no, don't do that, girl. I mean, if that's where your story starts, let it know.
I saw a light.
Right. I can't. Oh, geez.
Anyways, well, my name is Khaeris Guerrero.
Girl,
let's roll those R's. Okay. But for you non-Spanish speakers, I go by Khaeris. Okay, that works for me. But I'm from the East Coast. I was raised in Connecticut, but now I live in the big old country of Texas.
Girl. Literally its own planet. It's fine.
But I've been here for 5 years, and I love it here. I am post-grad, adulting, doing the thing, working, very involved in church, trying to survive out here on these streets.
What streets? We're home. Dun, dun, dun. What are streets? New question. What's that?
Dust streets.
Dust streets. Oh my gosh, the struggle. Bless.
Yeah, but that's just me. There's nothing super crazy.
Oh.
Just work. I work a 9 to 5, and I love Jesus. I have a really cool family. Currently in a really cool relationship.
Hey. Yeah.
And God is good.
Amen. That's good. So I know you have 2 separate First Paso situations you want to talk about. So, let's start with, what was the first one you told me? You wanted to talk about,
I guess,
living
adulting.
with parents, like transitioning.
Yes.
In
going
the
from Goo Goo Gaga to Miss Independent.
Girl. Yeah. We all understand the Goo Goo to the Gaga to the Independence. I mean, woo. Hey. How has that been?
I think it's interesting. I also think that when I realized that it was time to transition, there wasn't a lot of people I can talk to about it. Because I think a lot of us who grew up in the church and also grew up with parents who are from different countries, they grew up believing that you're not allowed to move out until you are married.
Facts.
And so it was really a journey in itself. And I really wish I had someone who I could talk to about it growing up. And so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about it today and how that transition goes. And I also, having a younger sister who's going through that similar transition as well, it's just been, I feel like, brought up a lot lately. So, yeah.
So I remember a few years back when you had your first apartment, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that transition like for you? And
it was scary.
Was that right after college too? Like, what was the time frame from like having finished college, maybe starting a job or whatever, and then deciding you were gonna live by yourself?
Yeah, so I graduated from college in May. I didn't get my first real adult job. I believe it was like October of that year, and then I moved out the following fall. So it was pretty much a year since graduating before I decided it was time to move out. And it was because, I needed to save money. I needed furniture. And literally, everything.
Right.
But I didn't realize that until I was like, oh, I'm going to move out. And then my parents were like, well, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you pay for this? Do you pay for that?
Right.
And it was definitely a wake-up call. And so what I guess first prompted me to want to move out was, I feel like as you get older, you just naturally start feeling that need to be more independent. And that year, the year before I moved out of my parents' house, we had moved from Connecticut to Texas. And that was, a family decision. I wanted to move, but it wasn't something I did on my own. And then we moved here and we settled and things were going okay. But for me, I was like, okay, well, what's next?
Right. Right.
I didn't want to keep doing everything with my family. I was 23, 24 years old, but I also didn't have like my friends that I could escape and do stuff with as well.
Right.
So it was just, I was battling with this whole what's next. I'm going to have a job. Okay, I'm done with school. What do I do? And, my parents were very much like, well, you shouldn't move out because you're not married. But at that point, there was no person that I saw myself being with. There was like no potential. I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and wait either because one, I ain't waiting for no man.
Hey,
okay?
Girl, you better tell it like it is. I'm waiting for man.
But also, it's just, who knew when that was going to happen?
Right.
And I was very terrified of being that person who is 40 years old and still living at home.
Oh.
Although, shout to y'all who are 40 years old and still living at home, taking care of your parents.
Yes. Bless you for your sacrifice.
Yes. So, I really had to just think about what it is I wanted to do. And I decided, okay, that's what I wanted to do. And so when I did move out, my parents were like, oh, you want to move out? Okay, so you're going to have to start paying for your car insurance, for all of these things that I didn't realize that I wasn't really taking care of and that my parents were just being nice and paying for.
Right.
So I was like, oh, snap. So, like, I really do have to grow up.
Yeah.
But I knew it was a step I needed to take because had I not done that, I would have never realized the sacrifice that my parents did for me while living at home and everything.
Yeah.
And I also just I feel like I wouldn't have experienced the world the way that I should have. Like, I was also afraid of getting older and not knowing a lot of things too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, just like not having the exposure.
I didn't want to be this grown woman who just didn't really know what to do.
Right.
And then also be like, well, I guess I do need a man so he can do this for me.
Dang.
So we wanted to avoid all of that from happening.
Yeah. And
just do our own thing. So I guess the first step I really needed to take was just realizing it was time and realizing that was okay. I didn't want to feel like I was truly on my own. I still wanted to feel like I still had my parents. And I had the best parents ever. And I know that they were never just going to be like, okay, bye. Like, you got it. But at the same time, they also didn't want to cradle me either. They're like, okay, you want to do this? Well, you're going to have to learn how to do this.
Right.
And so before I moved out of my house, I got an Excel spreadsheet and I started putting in, okay, this is how much I get paid. Then I'm like, okay, this is about how much I'm going to be paying for rent. This is about how much I'll be paying for electricity. I made like a groceries budget. I listed out every single number because I was like, even if I have no money left for that pay period, I wanted to make sure that at least all my bills were covered.
Right.
And so that ended up really working out for me. And then eventually I'm like, oh, okay, so I have some extra money here. That means I can do this and do that or whatever. And I feel like that was really key because it held me accountable of like being smart with money. Because before I moved out of my parents' house, I truly, till this moment, don't know where all my money went. Because when I lived at my parents, I wasn't paying for rent. I wasn't paying for a lot of things. Yeah, I was still very excited for my next check.
The struggle. It's because it's like,
So,
yeah, we like, when we're with our parents, it's like, who needs to track money? And then you're like, where did it go? I need to get paid again. I think it happens to a lot of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just easy, like, oh, I'll just pay for this. Or you go shopping. Oh, that looks cute. I could just buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I moved out, it was like, oh, okay. I gotta look at this tag.
Right.
let me
check that tag real quick. Like, is there a discount somewhere? No? Okay, well, goodbye, dress. Like that's it. So true. Like, you gotta, like, rearrange your priorities real quick, or else you could get evicted. So it's like, yeah, gotta figure it out real fast. So, and you did all of that prep with, getting an Excel spreadsheet and kind of financially trying to organize yourself before the move. Is that what you did that before the move? And so then,
yes.
How long were you there?
In my apartment?
In that apartment, yeah.
I lived in my first apartment for 2 years.
Okay.
But it was a really cheap apartment. Mm-hmm. It was not in the best neighborhood. Ooh. I learned a lot about myself and growing up during that time. Yeah. And then after those 2 years were up, a part of me was ready to move back home because I was like, well, I could really like start saving more money. But then another part of me was like, or I can just like move to a nicer apartment and everything. Yeah. And so I had made the decision to move into another apartment. Okay. And then I lived in that apartment for a year. But so my lease was from, I believe, October to October. Mm-hmm. And May of last year, there was actually a shooting in my apartment complex. And
oh no,
it was so crazy. Oh. And so I lived in the second floor, and the shooting happened in the apartment below me. Girl.
Hold me, Jesus. What? Absolutely not. Oh no.
It was crazy.
Was that you're like, yeah, well, thank you for allowing me to stay here. Let me just get my stuff and leave?
It really was. I mean, it was so crazy. I realized how sheltered I was from a lot of things. And I was really blessed in my first apartment because nothing major really happened. Yes, I would overhear a couple of like fights or arguments and stuff like that. But having to deal with a shooting is like a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what happened was, I don't really know what happened, but I know at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I opened my eyes and like I felt like everything was like vibrating. I don't know. And I just felt really dizzy. But I didn't know what was happening because I don't remember like hearing a sound or anything. Right. And then I laid back down and like closed my eyes, and then it happened again, and that's when I actually heard like shots. Oh. And then I heard like the lady downstairs just like screaming and crying, and I was like, what is going on? Yeah. And then I looked out the window and I saw like a whole bunch of police, and it was wild. And then I was too scared to go outside and be nosy because I'm like, I'm not about to be put in that situation. Right. But then the next morning, or later that morning when the sun was out, when I tried to take my dog out, I noticed that there was still police outside, and the bottom of my steps was yellow tape, so I couldn't even leave my apartment. And so I look at the police like, I need to walk my dog. And they're like, okay, but we have to be with you the whole time. And I was like, okay. And I was like, can you tell me what's going on? And they're like, just so you know, you can't go to work. And they're like, can you tell me which car is yours? And I pointed out my car, like in the parking. And they're like, oh, your car is a part of the crime scene because whoever fired the gun, the casings of the bullets rolled underneath my car. So I couldn't move my car or anything. And it was crazy. And so I was all by myself in my apartment. I didn't know what to do.
That's a lot.
I didn't know who to call because I'm like, the police is already here.
Right.
There was literally nothing for me to do, but I felt just very alone.
Wow.
So after that, I was like, you know what? I think I'm good.
Oh my goodness.
It was fun. And you know, those kinds of things can literally happen anywhere, whether it be a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen.
So true.
But the fact that it hit so close to home, literally, a few feet below me, I was scared, and I knew that, okay, I just really wanted to be with my parents.
Yeah.
And so when my lease was up, I decided, you know, I'm going to move back home, save some money, and hopefully buy a house later on. And so it's funny how I'm talking about growing up and adulting while I am in the house of my parents.
Yeah.
But I feel like that time was really needed for me personally.
Yeah.
Because I needed to know what it was like to be independent, what it was like to not rely on my parents so heavily, and to just make decisions for myself.
Right.
You know, not living with your parents means I don't hear them waking up to go to church. I don't hear them like cooking up breakfast and stuff like that. Like, I have to consciously make that decision.
Right.
Okay, I am going to go to church and I'm going to be a part and I'm going to be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, well, everyone else is up, let me go.
Right.
And so for that moment in my life, I really needed it because I was so focused on, oh, what do I do next, that I should have been focusing on, like, God, what do you want me to do next? Like, what do you have planned for me next?
Right.
But no, for me, it was just like, well, I'm 23, 24 years old. Like, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Instead of asking God, like, what do you want me to do in this season of my life?
Right.
And so since I decided to take things into my own hands, God was like, well, you kind of put this situation in front of you, but I'm going to still be here with you and I'm going to still walk with you. And so it took that alone time for me to realize, okay, I should have my own devotional time. I shouldn't wait till Friday night and like everyone else posting scripture for me to be like, oh, let me go ahead and open my Bible.
Right.
I shouldn't wait for my parents to be like, hey, we're having devotional to welcome the Sabbath. No.
Right.
And so I would look around, I'll be looking at my dog, and I'm like, lady, it's time to do devotional.
that dog got the word. Hey. Yes, blessed and highly favored.
But that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it made me realize that I can do it on my own.
Yeah. And
like, it helps me become more intentional with God. And also with people like around me, because I also had to become more intentional about the time I spent with my family.
Yeah.
Like, okay, on Saturdays, like after church, let's meet up for lunch.
Yeah.
Or on Sundays, let's make sure we spend time together.
Yeah.
And so that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an interesting journey that, I think, but it's relatable too. We have this mentality, and we both have immigrant parents, so we understand culturally, which a lot of it's hard to explain to someone who's not first generation American in some way, shape, or form how it is to be culturally something completely different than what you're being taught in America as an American child being raised here. Like, because you have society tells you by the time you're 18, even, like, you should be on your own. Your parents should not have to pay for anything. If you want to do anything, that's on you. Whereas for both of our cultures, we have the Caribbean background for both of us, and it's the you stay home with your parents until you get married type of mentality. And so there are cultural clashes for us because of where we grow up and where they grew up, and they expect us to culturally conform to what they taught us when we're trying to also weed out the things that maybe we resonate more with from the culture we're growing up in. So it's just like trying to figure out how to express that and address that with our parents can be pretty complicated, and it's hard for us when we're younger to understand sometimes even their frustration with us not doing what they've always known until we're older, and we're like, I kind of need to show you guys grace for how you were acting because you guys weren't raised. So, like, you guys actually do not know what it's like to be raised here. You're raising me here, but you didn't have that as a first-hand experience. So me getting frustrated with you and you getting frustrated with me is because we're coming from two very different worlds and trying to make the other understand where we're coming from. And so...
Right. And that's why I wanted to do so much beforehand. Like, that's why I had my little budget and everything, because I knew, okay, my parents are not a huge fan of me doing this, and I didn't want to disappoint them, and also them to be like, well, we told you,
right?
But it was also hard speaking to my friends who are not from the same background as me, because they're like, girl, we haven't lived home since we were 18 and we just figured it out and whatever. And so the internal battle was for real because, like, a part of me was like, I could just do it. Like, I'm going to figure it out. Everyone figures it out. But then I'm like, but why? When my parents have my back and they're cool and they really don't mind me being home.
Right.
And stuff. So I'm glad you pointed that out as well, because it was a lot of thinking involved.
Yeah, and I completely resonate with that, because I remember even us when we were at undergrad, and I had this desire to work because everyone else was working, but my parents were willing to just support me in tuition and stuff. But I was like, no, like, this is what American kids do. Like, we put our money into our education. And they're like, but, like, you're basically living with us, so we take care of you, so don't even worry about it. And I started feeling guilty, but they're like, why? And I'm like, because American kids, we do this. Like, and it's like, I just felt like I wasn't doing what I knew within my personal culture. I felt like I just wasn't doing what I was doing, and I felt like I wasn't growing up like everyone else, because everyone else had to figure out their own budget. They were paying their own car payments, they were paying their own phone bills, and my parents were like, don't worry about it, we got you. And so I understand that whole, like, how do I balance my culture with my parents' culture, which is also my culture, but they're not. There's very drastic differences in both, and trying to walk the line of who am I that allows the best aspects of both cultures to be in me, and how do I do that confidently without worrying my parents or doing something that ultimately affects me in a negative way. And it's just such a struggle to process that, especially when you're trying to move out and you want to live on your own. And culturally, that's just, it really is not a thing for our cultures that you do that. But, you know, having the conversations and trying to reassure and still trying to show that you're not leaving them, or, you know, that you're not forgetting what they taught you, or I don't know. I think it's also different because we're also girls, and it's for guys in our cultures, I think it's a little bit more acceptable for them to move out before they get married and like figure things out so they can prepare for a wife. But for us, they're like, no, we need to protect you before a man shows up, right? And it's so, and yet we live in an America that wants to empower women to be independent and live on their own and not have to rely on a man to provide for us all the time. And so that cultural difference is hard to explain to parents who didn't grow up in a society that believed that. And I don't even think it's that they don't think we couldn't support ourselves. I think it's just culturally they think that's what's best to do to protect us. So just I hearing your story help connect with a lot of what I know I've gone through with my parents before. But our parents love us to death. So at the end of the day, like, as long as we stay in that communication, we constantly give that love back to them for their reassurance, I think they start to grow in their understanding of how we are different, but not completely different. Like, we've adopted a lot of what they gave us while also picking up a lot of what we're learning in our own culture.
Exactly. And I think that's what also helped with the transition moving back home. I think when I decided I wanted to move out, I felt a lot more tension with my parents because I'm like, they don't really get what I'm thinking or feeling. And it was just weird. But now that I lived alone and I was like, hey guys, I think I do want to move back temporarily so I can, you know, save up for a house and everything. We've had much more of like a mutual understanding, like, oh, okay, so we know that you need your space now, or we know that sometimes you're just going to do your own thing and we're not going to have these expectations that just because you're living at home, you have to do all of this with us and everything. And so that's been a cool change. And it's also been like, hey, you know, you guys can ask me to like help out and I will help out because I am an adult, I am doing things, and it feels less more like, oh, but we're your parents and we have to do all of this for you, and more just like, oh, okay, like we're a team. Right. And so now my parents feel more comfortable with like, oh, can you just go and grab this for us? And I'm like, yeah, no problem, and stuff like that. So it has definitely helped our understanding of each other and just like growing up.
Mm-hmm. Even that growing up is a transition, and it's a transition in all cultures, to be honest. Just the knowing that they always see us as their, you know, little girl or their baby boy, no matter how old we get, and trying to show them that their baby girl now wears high heels and has a job. You know, it's like, how do you showcase that to them? And it really takes us remembering that they are being technically forced into a transition because we're changing, that they may or may not mentally be ready for, emotionally be ready for, and we just have to keep kind of explaining it to them and being an example of what we're trying to tell them, so then they start to slowly, hopefully, get it. I understand that not all parents understand it, and there are people who feel like they've been chasing their tail forever with their parents and trying to get them to understand. But I think most good parents at some point have this bittersweet realization that their child is now an adult and they remember that they too were our age at some point, also having to ask themselves these questions, and they finally kind of take a step back in how they approach us in being our parents without feeling like they've completely had to remove their role as our parents. It's just that their role now looks different. The job description is a little, it's shifted in a different direction, but it doesn't take away the fact that they are our parents, and they, you know, you kind of, I feel like I have to tell my parents sometimes, I'm like, you know, I'm old enough to even hear about your problems. You know, like, you can talk to me now. I'm not 12. I'm not 14. I can actually handle your emotions. Or if you need me to do something, just ask me. Or you're still allowed to give me advice, but don't give it to me expecting that I have to take it. See, that's different now. Before it was like, you're under my house, you're under my roof, like, this is what I told you, you're gonna do it. I'm an adult, and I always want your advice, and I appreciate it, but know that I may not always take it, but I will always take it into consideration, knowing that when you gave it to me, it came from a place of love. So don't be offended if you realize that I didn't take your advice. You know, like, all those different questions you have to go through. And I think it doesn't even matter whether you're first generation American or wherever you're from. I think that transition is something that we have to empathize with and realize, like, we're all transitioning together, and it's kind of weird for everyone, and everyone's figuring it out. But once you get through those weird weeks, months, years of that transition, then you have a new groove, and you feel like, okay, we're a better, well-oiled machine, and we can kind of get the footing again. But yeah, that's very relatable.
I also think that it's important to remember that, you know, God specifically tells us to honor our mother and our father, you know?
Yeah.
But he doesn't say, thou shalt live under your parents forever and ever. You know, like, he actually calls us to eventually leave and transition. Mm-hmm. And I know it's more specifically spoken in the sense of marriage, right, and leaving your parents in that way. But with the way society changes and the way people are getting married at an older age and all of that stuff, the one thing that still never changes is to honor our parents. Yeah. So we can still go through all of these transitions and adult and move out if that's what you feel like is best for you. But you have to, again, ultimately remember to honor your mother and your father. And I think that's really important, because now that I've moved back in with my parents, although they've been less like, you have to do this and we're up at this time and all of this, I'm still very mindful of, like, they're still my parents. Yeah. And they deserve the respect. And I think that they have also mutually understood that, like, they're respecting me and my time and everything like that, but still being my parents too.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot to think about and process. So, you know, for those of you that are in that, like, do I move out? Do I move back in? How do I talk to my parents about this? Or even, like, if I have siblings as well, like, how is everyone affected by this different transition? What do I need to do financially? Like, are you still supporting me? Do you want to transition bills over in my name for some things or for all things, so you can kind of mentally prepare? Do you know, if you're moving back, like, do my parents want me to pay rent, or are they cool with me just really saving up all of my money because they want to be supportive? What does that look like? If I am helping out financially, how much, which bills? You know, having those conversations, with being willing to say, I'm willing to help, or I'm willing to go through that transition if you work with me, and then we can see what would best work for me in my desire to transition out of the house, back into the house. Whatever that is, the communication piece is probably the biggest factor in making all of these transitions out of respect for your parents and what they've done for you. And also, so there's less confusion about what's actually happening in without having miscommunication, making people think that he's like, oh, well, they're just moving out because XYZ. And it's like, no, I really just want to grow and figure myself out. And I don't think that's going to happen here. Or, you know, I have to come back. Am I allowed to come back? How does that look? You know, just making sure that the communication is clear and honest and open and transparent. So that way everyone can transition in the smoothest possible way and keep the relationships as healthy as possible in those transitions. Yes. So for you, what would your advice be for people going through either transition, if they're thinking of leaving home or if they're thinking of returning home? What would you want people to take away from that?
I would say number one, just pray about it. Make sure you actually think about what it is you're wanting to do, because there's not going to be an easy transition either way. Like whether you decide to stay home, you need to pray that God gives you the patience to really understand your parents and how they feel about you growing up, and your own feelings about being at home and everything. And then if you're really like thinking about moving out, you know, you need to pray that God gives you the wisdom to really plan accordingly, and know what you're kind of getting yourself into. Secondly, just like you said, I would definitely advise that you have that conversation with your parents. You know, don't leave them out in the dark. Don't just wake up one morning with your bags all packed up and ready to go. That's just super, super, super important. So prayer and communication, I think that's going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I would add to that, make sure you really thought out your plan. Like,
yes,
draw it out. Especially if it's your first time moving out, make a plan. Do your research for where you plan on living, whether it's the pricing that you know you can afford, the areas of safety, checking out those reports of how safe or not safe a neighborhood has been, and really having that blueprint with your bills and everything, so that way you feel confident in your step in moving out, and it will give your parents that reassurance that you're not just up and leaving without ending up on someone's couch because you really didn't plan something. You know, some people do that.
Yeah. And I would, another thing, I would also say to think about what you're willing to like sacrifice as well, because when you move out, it is going to be costly, and there's some things you're going to be losing, whether it be taking a certain amount of vacations a year or going out to eat every weekend with your friends and all of this stuff. Like, you really have to take that into consideration too. Because like I told you earlier, I didn't realize how much money I was just blowing until I moved out and started paying bills. And I was like, wait, I don't remember having this much money before.
Right. Yeah, even, you know, do you need to have a community Netflix account? Like things like that. You really have to think about what is really the most important thing to you. Like, do you want to pay your bills and not get evicted, or do you really, really need to watch that series on Netflix? Like, you have, you know, gotta have your priorities figured out before you make a giant move like that, because you don't want to partially do it and then move and go, oh, I think I'll just figure it out. Like, I can keep having these vacations, or I can keep being subscribed to Hulu or whatever, and Disney Plus and every other possible network you can find, and then realizing partway in, like, oh crap, I'm in a bind, and now I'm getting notices that I could get evicted if I don't pay all of my rent, or I realize I'm behind on my bills. You don't want to go there. So make sure that you have a plan to move out. Don't be haphazard in, I want to be out by this date. If you don't have the money for that date, then don't move out. Like, make the plan based on your finances, that it would make sense to be able to move out.
And don't be afraid to like talk to other people too. Being a young adult is weird, and I think we sometimes think that we're experiencing certain things alone, especially when you're looking at the standpoint of like social media. Because I remember when I was 23, 24, I would see posts of either people like getting married or people starting to like graduate like with their masters and doing like other things. And I felt like, oh, am I the only person who's just like working full time and not going back to school, but also not married?
Right.
And so it's important to realize you're not the only person in that situation. There are so many young adults, especially if you're in a community like church with a lot of other young adults. Talk to them. See what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're going through and stuff like that. Because I think that'll also help with the decision making process. And no one is the same. No one experience is the same. But it's just nice to hear other experiences. And
you can learn from each other too.
Y'all can just be broke together.
There you go. Community brokenness, Lord. Oh, geez. Yeah, man. It's like, man, I'm so glad I also only have $17 in my bank account. That's just, it's refreshing to hear that from someone.
Some of the best nights that I have had as a young adult is just like inviting friends over. Everyone just brings a couple of dollars and we just share like a large pizza and just sit there and do nothing. Like, those are the best things. So find a community of friends that are around your age group, because that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. And they'll be able to pour into you and you and them, and just kind of keep each other motivated through these different transitions of our lives, Man, thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also talk about your transition into self-love, because I feel like that these transitions kind of go hand in hand. I feel when it's all part of figuring yourself out,
Right.
So tell me about when you decided to, like, what was it that prompted you to want to really go down this journey of learning how to love yourself?
Yeah. I think it definitely does go hand in hand with moving out of my parents' house, because I had a lot of alone time and had a lot of time to really just sit with myself. And that's what really kind of started me into all of this. Growing up, I never really thought of myself as like ugly or not a negative person. Like, I can't really say that I was super down on myself growing up. However, I was very self-aware in the fact that like I wasn't the prettiest girl in school and all of this stuff. And it's mostly because I always just grew up being like the chunky one of the group.
Me
but
too.
Growing up, I remember like when I was in kindergarten, there were some people who would like call me fat or whatever, and my mom would be like, "You tell them you're not fat, you're just full of love."
Yes, Mom.
Little did I know that wasn't the best thing to say.
See, moms come with their like mom responses and ask us to use mom responses on children. FYI, if you're a mom, please, we love you. We really appreciate you. A lot of what you tell us actually makes it worse. And we don't say that to make you feel bad. We just say that to save ourselves. So
Right.
we understand where you're coming from. We also know that if we try to say things like that, you know, it might just be a rough day / week / year / rest of our K through 12 lives. So yeah, bless you for your love. Please don't allow us to get hurt because of it. So it's just a tidbit for all you moms out there.
Seriously. But yeah, so my home life pretty much set me up to believe that I was still beautiful, but my
That's
school life and even my church life, like the friends I had in church, were not were not that way.
Mm.
And I think it's also just like a part of growing up. A lot of girls see certain things in the media and magazines that, like, if you're not a certain height, if you're not a certain size, whatever, that means you're not pretty or you're not like gorgeous.
Right.
And people would used to always tell me, like, you have such a pretty face and you have like such a cute smile.
That feels like the biggest offense, right? Yeah, it feels like the biggest offense in the world to get that. I've had that too, so I get it.
And then in high school, when it was like superlatives time, I was super bubbly and like friendly with everyone. But the superlatives that I received were best personality, which is what every fat girl hears, and most huggable, which is just like, okay, I'm fluffy. I get it.
She said, I'm fluffy. I get it. I mean, that's what it translates to in our minds. It's like, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm your jolly pillow. Like, geez. Like a marshmallow for your life. So happy.
But again, like I was still an overall happy person. Yeah. But again, I was just aware that I'm like, okay, but I'm not skinny and all this stuff.
Right.
So during high school, I found out that I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
Which then
explain that. What does that mean?
It means that there are cysts in my ovaries. And if you look up the symptoms of someone with PCOS, it's usually someone who is bigger, someone with like dark circles around their neck, and there's just like a whole bunch of different things, like higher testosterone levels, just a lot, and irregular cycles. So I checked off a lot of those things on those lists. And so when the doctor said, okay, like, this is what you have, I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And he's like, well, in your case, you are like insulin resistant. He's like, so you're not diabetic. However, sugar reacts a certain way with your body. And so what you're going to realize growing up is that it's going to be really hard for you to lose weight, but really easy for you to gain weight. And so in a way that was really like reassuring to know that it wasn't necessarily my fault.
Right.
Because if you guys see my mom is a petite little person, like, and she's always been super healthy. Like growing up, she would make sure that we like ate our veggies. She would make sure that she wouldn't add like oil to things and stuff like that. And it was because my grandfather had passed away from a heart attack. So my mom was very good about making sure that her kids were like eating well. Mm-hmm. But I knew for her as a mom, seeing me grow up as like a bigger girl, she also had some doubt about the way she was being a mom too, because she was like, but I thought I was doing everything right, but she's still like a little chunky. Mm-hmm. And so when the doctor told us what was going on, it helped me like feel better, but it also helped my mom realize like, okay, she's still doing okay as a mama.
So this was in high school that you found this out? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I was a teenager and everything. So it made me feel better, but it also encouraged me to kind of like try harder with like getting healthy and being mindful of things that I should like eat and shouldn't eat and everything. And so I would go through these like phases of like, okay, I'm really gonna be strict and like do this so I can like lose weight. And then when I felt like cheating, I would never go back to like being super healthy and like everything. And it was just like a super roller coaster. Like I would really base it all on my feelings. Like, okay, yes, I'm motivated, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, no. And I'd get sad and be down for a bit, but then I'd be like, oh, I gotta do this or whatever. And it was just like a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forward to me being an adult and I'm living on my own. I decided, okay, now that I'm living on my own, I'm gonna make my own like doctor's appointments, find like a new doctor since I had moved here and all of this stuff. And I went to see a doctor, and this is a crazy story. But I went to go see my doctor, and when I went to sit in the office, the nurse goes, do you think you'll be able to, your weight will be able to be picked up on this scale?
Ooh, ho, oh, catch these hands. What? Excuse? For real?
Yes, girl. She's like, because the scale only goes to a certain weight. I'm like, I mean, I don't know.
Right.
You're the nurse.
Why don't we just try it and see? How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of opening your mouth like that. Ooh, girl. Ooh. Oh, the Holy Ghost would have had to hold me back with that comment.
So that ended up affecting my the way that I felt myself in a huge way, because I was like, if even a nurse thinks that I am like this person and all of this stuff, so I ended up getting really down about it. And then I was later encouraged by, you know, family and friends, and they were just like, you do what you feel like you need to do. Like, if you want to start a journey and like feel like you need to lose weight, we're going to be here for you. But also know that we don't see fault in you. We would never think that way about you. And that really switched things for me, because I'm like, okay, it's not necessarily like I'm walking around like waddling and I'm on my deathbed. Like, my overall health is okay. Is there things that I need to do better? Yes. But am I ugly? Am I like dying? No, I am not. And so that kind of changed things for me, because I knew that if I'm going to go on this journey to lose weight and get healthy, it's not going to happen overnight. And so I'm just going to have to be okay with the fact that I am the size that I am and I look the way that I look. And I think that's super important to remember, because I'm not going to walk around and say like, I am flawless and I am just going to eat whatever the heck I want and do all of this stuff. Like, I don't want to do that either. But at the same time, I want to be happy whether I'm eating a French fry or if I'm eating a salad. Like, my self-awareness still needs to be on point.
Wow.
Because I don't want to feel guilty for one or the other. I just want to be happy.
Yes.
And so it took a lot of, you know, reading and studying and surrounding myself with people who weren't as obsessed with diet culture, but also wasn't obsessed with like, just do whatever you want either. And I feel like nowadays that's really hard to find, because it's you're either on one side of the spectrum or the other.
Right.
But I think I've found kind of like a happy medium. And I really thank God for it. Like, I feel so much better about myself. And I also am lucky that I have found a partner who supports me either way as well.
Yeah.
And he's very much like, I fell in love with you with the way you look now. You know, if you want to lose weight or whatever, let's do it together. Like,
Yeah.
I'll do my workouts, you do your workouts, we'll hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Like, but if you want to go out to eat and get a burger or whatever, I'm gonna do that with you. And you know what? We'll get ice cream afterwards too. He's like, but no matter what, like, I fell in love with you, your personality, and everything about you. He's like, I think you are the hottest person. And I'm like, oh, come on, thank you.
Right. Yes. Like, yes, babe. I'll feed you.
And
yes.
I don't say that to say that you should rely on another person to make you feel that way, but it definitely helps when you're on this like up and down journey to have that person who's like constant and is with you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow.
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. So like, can you share a little bit of the kind of the details of maybe something you would say to yourself in a crossroads moment about like, should I eat this or should I eat this, or should I go work out or should I not go work out, or I don't feel motivated to do something, what should I do to help me stay consistently motivated? Like, what were those conversations, what were those actions that you went through to try to keep yourself in this balanced state?
Yeah, I think it really helps me to ask myself, like, how am I going to feel like an hour later according to whatever decision I make. Like, if I do this workout an hour later, yeah, I'm going to be like sweaty, but am I going to be feeling like super rejuvenated and happy? Or am I just going to feel like, why did I do it, and still like unmotivated? And it could go either way. And I think it's important to have that conversation with yourself and recognize that, because like for me, I never want to put myself in a situation that like I'm forcing myself to do anything and then still feel upset about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize, like, it's okay to sometimes just like not want to do it. But then I also have to think about, okay, well, if I sit here and watch TV instead, how am I going to feel an hour later? Am I going to feel like, man, I really should have just done that workout? Or am I going to feel like, you know what, I really needed this like downtime to like recover from the stressful day that I had, or whatever the case may be. So that has really what's been helping me find that balance. It's just thinking about, okay, what is near future Khaeris gonna think? Because that's kind of the way I have to take it. Since my weight can be very up and down, I can't just think about, well, in a year from now I want to lose like 100 pounds or whatever. I really need to think about, okay, what lifestyle decision am I going to make in this moment, and how's that going to affect me on my day-to-day?
Right. Yeah. Those conversations with ourselves, no matter what it is that's preventing us from loving ourselves. It could be our weight. It could be a health issue. It could be something completely different. It could be unhealthy relationships in our lives. It could be the bombardment of everyone living their fake lives on social media and thinking that it's all reality and you're not keeping up with the Joneses. It could be a lot of things, and yet I feel like the journey is still similar in the fact that you kind of have to sit down, assess yourself, assess your emotions, assess your mindset, and ask yourself the tough questions that maybe you don't want to talk about, or you don't want to face. Look at the barriers that you recognize and see what you can do right now to go around them or jump them in some way, shape, or form in the present, and take it a day at a time. It's the, you're not gonna wake up feeling like Beyonce, like every day for the rest of your life after you decide that one day you want to love yourself. But every day is is another opportunity to take a step towards loving yourself more, without necessarily having to rely, like you said, relying on someone else for that love. Like, and I know I've had to also go through something similar in asking myself those tough questions. Like, is the love that I have for myself based on who I am and who, God is in my life, versus someone else and how they love me? And if it's based on the latter, Houston, we have a problem. Because if they were to up and leave today, or they were to not be with me anymore, where am I? Is my life buried with them? Is my life moving with them? Are my emotions and thoughts going with them? If so, we really have a problem. And I don't want to be reliant on everyone else for me to have stability, because I won't find stability in everyone else. I'm not saying I will always be stable, right? Like, because we have emotions, right? Our emotions change all the time. But I always have a hard time trying to figure out how to say this. I have a hard time figuring out how to say this in English. But I guess it's the difference between am I happy, or do I have joy? I think is what I'm trying to say. Like, estoy feliz or soy feliz? The state of being. Am I genuinely joyful with my person, even if my emotions are, I can be sad but still be happy with my person. I can be angry and still be happy with my person. Those are the questions I think my 20s and probably my 30s, part of my 30s will be. Like, I'm still on that journey as well, just reassessing, reassuring myself, are you still happy with you because of you and only you, or someone else what you lean on to try to keep yourself up? And that those are hard questions, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it, like that we've really been relying on someone else's or the world's idea of what love is. And until we really sit down and talk to ourselves and write it out, journal, even find good friends that we trust, mentors, to really process what we're thinking, and then say, like, okay, so how do I level up from here? Like, I really just want to be my best self for me. And in being that for me, it will positively impact other people, where I can support them and I can love on them, but also empower them to be able to also love themselves, whether or not I'm there to love them. So right. Yeah, it's like you can't love others if you don't love yourself. And that's exactly. So important. That's so important. We forget that. But you also shouldn't just love yourself, because then, hello, sweetie, you need to take it down a notch. Let's not become completely absorbed in our quest for self-love, right? Like, that love should be for you initially, but it should also be to pour into other people because you're healthy enough to do so.
Exactly. You should know that, like, in order to love others, you do have to love yourself. But in order to be authentic and to be genuine, you have to really sit there and think about certain things. And I think it's just, like, also really funny how growing up people would always point out the fact that, like, I was bigger and stuff like that. But I remember I would, like, stand in front of the mirror. I'm like, but I'm kind of cute though. Like, I don't.
I'm done. I look good today. I don't know.
Like, I don't really see anything, like, super, super bad either.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find that balance. And, you know, God says that we are fearfully, wonderfully made, but He also sets out certain guidelines on how, like, we should eat and how to maintain, like, a certain, like, health for us. So it's just, like, trying to find that balance of remembering, yes, like, I am truly fearfully and wonderfully made, but also recognizing, okay, but I also should be doing this and all of that stuff. So I'm still living up to that body and to that health that God has wanted me to maintain.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah. Those are such important questions and things that we have to really think about. And for those of you who, you know, believe in God like we do, it's a crucial part for us to remember that He loved us before we even knew ourselves. And so that journey is part of our self-love journey. We also understand that not everyone knows God or loves God the way that we do as well. And so, you know, it doesn't really change your journey, though. It's still, everyone still has to sit down and ask themselves those questions. You have to self-reflect. Everyone has to do that, whether you...
Yeah. Even RuPaul, at the end of the show, RuPaul's Drag Race, he always says, like, if you can't love yourself, how the heck are you going to love anybody else? Like, it's just something that everyone deals with internally.
Right. Yep.
Because it's going to affect every part of your life. And it's like, if you just take a moment out to look at yourself and think about how you feel about yourself, that's going to affect so many other parts of your life. And me, I just want to be happy. I want the people around me to feel loved. I want to feel loved. Like, I don't want to be sad all the time. And sometimes it takes that to just make you feel like, okay, you know what? I need to start changing certain things and thinking certain ways and stuff like that. But while my booty is wearing like a 22, 24 dress, I'ma still wear that dress because guess what? That's the size that fits me right now.
Yes.
I'm just gonna be like, work. Look at those curves.
Yes. Better serve, girl. All of the curves. Not even ashamed. And you know what? That is something about you that I, since day one, have admired about you. You have this level of confidence about you, and you've always had it, that people don't expect you to have because of your size. Right? Like, most people think big girls, they're either Rizzo and they're like, you better receive all of this, right? Or you're not, and you're like, I just don't want to be here anymore. Like, those are the only two extremes of being a big girl, right? And it's so frustrating. That was something I didn't have. So I used to be like, how do you do that? Like, how do you just live your best life when I'm over here and I'm like, I don't feel beautiful. I don't see my worth. I don't understand why I look like this. And I'm frustrated with myself, and I keep self-sabotaging myself in trying to do better, but then my emotions come in, and then I don't do better, and then I'm mad at myself, and it's just a yo-yo of emotions because of all those things, because of the media, because of bullying as a kid, because of, not knowing my role in my family. Just, there's so many questions that I was asking about myself that I really, truly, even I'm still working on. Like, today, I'm working on my worth, and my value is going to be the same regardless of what I look like to myself or to other people physically, because my character, I had to change my mindset that my character is so much more important than my body, but my body is not left out of being important to me. It's a part of me, but it's going to change at all stages of my life. So I can't allow that to be where I find happiness. My body cannot be my center focus. Who I am will propel me, if who I am is healthy, it will propel me to want to do good with my body no matter what stage of its transitions it goes through. So that's what I'm going through and trying to understand for myself. But I've always admired that you've just always known who you were, and you're just like, well, I mean, that's just who I am. So I just, you know, it comes with me everywhere I go. Can't get rid of me. So, you know, just living my life. I just always found that so fascinating, especially at our ages in college. I'm like, how are you 19, 20, and you're just like, meh, this is me. And I'm like, why is this me? Like, we're like trying to figure it out. So I just, it was something I didn't see often from other big girls like myself. I thought it was amazing and admirable to watch how you conducted yourself at that age. When I really truly felt I could not figure out how to do that.
Yeah, but I also have to say though that although I was very much like, well, if it's me, so I'm gonna wear it.
Yeah.
Not every day was I'm like, yes, girl. No, like there was some days that I feel like I kind of had to fake it till I make it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes that affected me in a positive way because it, you know, it took me like, yes, I'm going to be just like super bubbly and everything for it to eventually be like, you know what? Yeah, I actually am like cute and this and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I do also want to say to people who do have like bigger friends, also be mindful with like how you compliment them. Because I remember in college, I would wear like sleeveless shirts and someone's like, another bigger girl was like, oh, I don't know how you wear your like sleeveless shirt because like my arms and all this stuff. And so although she was talking about herself, for me it was like, wait, should I be hiding my arms? Like,
right.
Talking about
right
and stuff. And then suddenly I found myself being like self-conscious about my arms, but I was like, just yesterday I was fine.
Yeah.
So it's very nice to say, yes, girl, I love the confidence that you are radiating. I love like that outfit you're wearing, but don't be that person that then goes, you're so beautiful. Like, I don't know how you're just so able to show off your arms or so able to just like.
That's literally like a backhanded compliment, guys. Like, that is definition backhanded compliment. Like, please shut your mouth.
So don't
like,
do that.
Just shut it. Just say you look cute today, and then period.
That's it.
No further comments. Please. So true. And like, I'm so glad you brought that up though, because I think you think of your fellow big sisters, you know, and how they're really complimenting while also like pointing out what they see wrong in themselves. And it's technically a backhanded compliment, but they're also being mean to themselves in that, you know. At the same time, then you have the other spectrum where if it's like, if you are smaller than a big girl, then you also have to be careful how, one, you speak about yourself around them, especially, and I'm not saying everyone who's thin or thinner is confident in themselves. That's a misconception, not true. A lot of girls who are healthy weight can't stand looking at themselves in the mirror. But if you are confident in yourself and you just love what you look like, I wouldn't be that person that's constantly saying that all the time around bigger girls, and like pointing out why. Because I think that's different, being like, oh God, it's like, I'm just so happy to be a size 2. Like, congratulations. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so happy for you. Or if you are, it gets complicated too, because I remember always having those. I was a cheerleader. I was the biggest cheerleader on my squad, and it was rough being the big cheerleader. But, you know, I'd hear the thinner cheerleaders go around pinching themselves and going like, my love handles are just like the worst. And I'm over here like, also, do I have like love railings? Like, come on, like what the heck? How now, brown cow, are you talking about this around me specifically? Like, you wait till I'm nearby and then you want to talk about what bothers you about your body. And it may actually bother you, but think about me in the process of talking about yourself. Or maybe we can have a conversation together about like, I know I'm thin, but this is how I see myself. And a lot of big girls don't understand it, especially when it's like, I've always wanted to be thin. You have no right to think like that. But at the same time, we as women should be empowering each other in our journey to see self-love. Like, we should want that for everybody. We cannot assume, because society tells us that skinny girls are happy, big girls are not. Beautiful girls are happy, ugly girls are not. That is not true. It's different for every person, for every circumstance, and our job, our duty as women should be, whatever you look like or however you see yourself, I want you to see yourself as your best self, period. I can't project how I see myself and then tell you you don't deserve to feel the way you feel about yourself because of how I feel about myself and the contrast between you and me. Take that out of the picture. That wall needs to go down. We cannot have that wall up in society anymore. We have to tear down those walls and realize that our mindset about ourselves, it's so important to keep the health of society by listening to each other, really hearing each other's stories, and realizing that though we look different, though we may even be going through different circumstances, the bottom line is that a lot of us do not have self-love. And now, how do we help each other have that self-love in the healthiest way? Period. You know? And
exactly.
It's just so hard to... You almost feel like society's pinning us against each other, literally solely based on our bodies. And it is the most disgusting thing in our society to actually make us hate each other even because of what we look like and assuming each other's truths. And that's just so wrong. It keeps us divided. It keeps us having perceptions of each other that do not exist, but people play off of those perceptions all day long. That is what the media, that is what the fashion industry does. That is what Hollywood does. That is what, I mean, it's cultural a lot of times too. And it's just really, it's sickening. It's disturbing. It's not healthy. It's inhumane to really take things that are, I mean, my skin, my culture, things that are out of my control. And even if they were in my control, who cares? Like, the point is that I want everyone to be their best self, period. Exactly. Don't pin me against my sister. Don't pin me against my brother. We are trying to learn how to be healthy holistically. So...
And, like, don't be afraid to cut off those things, those people, those websites that may put you in that mindset that, like, oh, all skinny girls are happier, or all big girls are unhealthy, or, like, if you're too skinny, then it's one thing, or cut it off. I know for me, like, I used to be really into the Kardashians. Like, I used to love watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And it got to the point, specifically when I started my journey into self-love, I remember watching one episode and they just kept saying, like, you're so fat, or, oh, this makes me feel so fat. Or they just kept saying it. It felt like they were saying it like every other word. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I letting this get to me?
Right.
And it took me to remove just watching that show, which I watch only once a week, to change my life in a huge way.
Wow.
And same with the people you surround yourself with. I knew there were some people that I would follow like on Instagram that were like super into health and weight loss and stuff, but the way that they spoke about certain things, or certain memes that they even posted, like me versus you, and it would be like someone sitting on the couch versus someone doing something else or whatever. And the way that that made me feel, I was like, you know what, until I'm like okay and learn to love myself, I need to get this out of my feet and stuff like that. So yeah, don't be afraid to cut certain things off in order to heal your mind and your way of thinking about yourself and going through a holistic journey.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I hate to say this, but you all know it's true. Sometimes those people are your family. Like,
Girl.
Sometimes you have to step back. You have to put up a really good boundary, because how they speak to you is not healthy. And you have to say, I deserve better than that. And the only way I would be able to be around them and not feel like, popping them in the nose every time they said something to me, or running away crying, I have to be solid in how I see myself. So if I have to be around them, no matter what they say to me, I'm solid in who I know myself to be. And if that means like, hey, I can only call my mom once every couple months, you might need to do that. If that means, hey, I can't speak to my sister every day anymore, then do that. And I wouldn't even say you have to explain it to them. I think it's just something you need to adjust yourself and go through that transition for yourself. And there's probably lifetime friends that you might have to do that with. It could be mentors. It could be a church leader or something. I mean, it could be anybody. It really could. Mm-hmm. And there's some people that I love in person that I can't follow on social media because of how they do their social media. Doesn't help me with my mindset, but I like talking to them when they're just their regular person in front of me, and it's not me going, I don't want to be your friend. I just can't be your friend on Facebook, or I can't be your friend on Snapchat. Right? It's just because it's a different world. It's a completely different version of you, and that version of you is not helping my mindset. And sometimes vice versa. It's like, your online personality is pretty awesome, and then I meet you in person and like, wow, I actually can't talk to you at all. I need to not be around you. I really prefer you on Instagram. Assessing all those things, figuring out all the factors that are playing a role in your lack of self-love, take them out, remove them. If you desire it enough, you'll do it. You'll do it, and it'll be hard, but worth it.
Yeah. And it's okay to be a little selfish in that sense, in having to remove certain people, because it's going to ultimately help you learn to love yourself, which later on will help you learn to re-love those people, or be able to communicate what you were feeling to them later on.
Yeah, in a much healthier way, in hopes that they receive your new you. And so, yeah, and if that's even breaking up with that significant other, that, you gotta do it. I wouldn't, if your significant other is verbally tearing you down, hurting you in any way, shape, or form, and it's taking away your ability to love yourself enough to let them go. Yeah. And if it's meant to be down the road, then in that reunion, that would probably mean that they've worked on themselves as well, and they're in a healthier place. You wouldn't want to go back after you've done this whole thing and you're like, but I still love them, and they're just as horrible to you as before. It's not worth it. There's probably better for you but don't stay in something toxic just because you've been with them for a certain amount of time, or you don't want to have to be single anymore, or you forgot what it's like to be single and that just sounds stressful, or whatever the case may be. If it's worth it to you, you will do it for you. And I promise you, who you are when you come out of that journey of self-love will look back and be like, I'm so glad I did not do that, because it would have made this journey much harder and much longer, and may not have really happened if I stayed here permanently. Just do it for yourself, because when you do it for yourself and you really reach that place in your life where you're like, I not only know who I am, I love knowing who I am. That's going to affect people in a positive way, and people need to see that from you. And it empowers them to see the humility of your self-love. It's refreshing to see.
And if your significant other doesn't love who you are now, or the way you look now, or whatever, it's not guaranteed that they're going to feel a different way when you do lose weight, or when you do something different. Then they might find something else that they don't like about you, and try to change you in a certain way and stuff like that. So it's important to recognize that. I totally agree with you.
Yep. Don't wait for them in your journey. Don't do it because you want to go back to them. Just do it for you, and just see what life brings you on the journey that's probably healthier for you anyway. So, man, yeah. Thank you, Khaeris, for talking about those things. It's hard adulting. Like, there's no guidebook. They just look at us like, ta-da, go girl, and you're like, okay. And it's just refreshing to hear someone else your age is like completely trying to process these transitions and the things that are confusing to process through and weed out and reassess. It's good to have these conversations. Like, you guys literally have just sat in on probably a regular phone call that we would have, me and Khaeris, but have those same conversations with your friends. Like, if you are in high school and you're about to transition into college, sit down with your high school friends and talk about it. If you know someone who's already in college, talk to them about it, because they're going through the transition you're about to step into. Find people to talk to that are closer in age to you. Yes, the mentors that are older are really great and they're wise and stuff, but knowing someone who's currently in it, or just is like a bit ahead of you, is so comforting to have those conversations and really try to understand in the context of now what to do with each step that you're taking, versus only getting advice from people who haven't done this in 20 years. And when they did it 20 plus years ago, it was a whole other situation. Although some of the advice that they have is helpful, it's not all beneficial for the current time in which we live. And so, yeah, really having the community that you talked about earlier, Khaeris, is so important to find, so that way we don't feel like we're making these transitions alone, or we're not feeling like I'm the only one figuring myself out. Like, there's people who look like they figured themselves out and they have no clue who they are, and they don't love themselves. So, like, just be honest. We need to be willing to be more honest about what we're feeling and what we're going through, so that way maybe in the conversation we can figure things out based on what we've heard from other people's stories. So, yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And if people were to reach out to you, like, how could they find you on social media?
Yeah, you guys can find me on my wellness / lifestyle / trying to figure out my life page called My OK Life on Instagram. It's my MYOOHK K-A-Y, life. And there you'll just pretty much see everything we talked about today. The part of adulting, the part of trying to be healthy, but also the part of just showing myself some self-love too. So, yeah, you can reach me there.
Awesome. And so, I just want to leave you guys with the thought of be kind to yourself as best as possible, and don't stress out too much about the transitions that you're going through in life. You will figure it out. Even if it feels like you keep hitting a wall, you will figure it out. And when you do, you will then have the tools to say where I messed up, what I could have done better, and then you can pay it forward so you can help someone coming up behind you needing to learn what you've already gone through. It's very important that we keep that communication open and honest for ourselves and for the people that we desire to help out every day. So yeah, please hit her up on IG. Her health, wellness, living my life page is actually pretty cool, and you get to literally, she's honest about her journey every day, and it's just real. It's nice to see a page that's just honest about what it's like to go through these transitions in life. And so please, I encourage you guys to hit her up on IG. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If there are any topics that you have in mind for future episodes, let me know. Post them on Twitter, DM me at First Paso, and we'll definitely talk about some of those things. And send me messages, Twitter posts about your transitions. Are you transitioning right now? Are you trying to figure out how to move out, how to move back home, where to move, what that looks like? Have you done it? Was it successful? What did you learn from the experience? And maybe if you're going on that journey of self-love, or you've just really kind of hit that tail end where you're like, yeah, I really think I can step back into the world and be 100% me. What is that like for you? What has that been? And what have you learned from that journey? I'm really excited to hear and learn from you guys about how you guys go through what you go through, because it helps me as well, and it helps me help other people, and I know it helps you to share, and it grows our confidence as well in what we're doing in this life. So thank you so much again, and you guys all take care. Khaeris, girl, we need to talk more. Let's not wait for quarantines for these conversations to happen. Let's not. But take care and say hi to your parents and your sister for me, and tell them I love them. And we'll talk soon, girl. Thanks again.
I love you, Candy.
Love you too, girl. Bye.
Bye.